the principal of the college, secretary, head of the Department of Visual Communication, professors, and the students. Good evening to you all. It's a very great pleasure to me and the privilege to be a part of the International Conference on Media and Social Responsibility. I hope that this avenue will provide a good placement to have a future memorandum of understanding with the University of Jaffna and the college in future. So I hope that we will move towards and have a good relationship with the Vaishnava College and hope to have more collaborative action from this point onwards. So that to manage the time, I will go directly to the keynote address. My title of the keynote address is Ethical Regulatory Mechanism for Media, a Sri Lankan Experience. So can I have a... it's okay. Yes, the first I wish to introduce that the ethical regulation, the importance of ethical regulation for media. The ethical regulatory mechanism for media refer to a system of frameworks designed to ensure that media organizations and professionals operate in a way that is responsible, fair, and consistent with ethical standards. This mechanism seeks to balance the freedom of expression with the need to protect individuals, society, and democracy from potential harm caused by unethical media practices. In Sri Lanka, the media landscape has evolved with challenges related to press freedom, media ownership, and ethical practices. The regulation and monitoring of media content are keys to ensuring the journalistic standards are maintained, misinformation is minimized, and the public receives accurate, unbiased information. Here an overview of Sri Lanka's ethical regulatory mechanism for media and the operational structure, strength, and weakness. So this is the roadmap of my presentation. The first I am going to deal with the Sri Lanka Press Council, and secondly the Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka, and third Digital and Social Media Regulation and Online Safety Act, the newly introduced act, and finally the role of civil society and media watchdog in Sri Lanka. The first I will go through the Sri Lanka Press Council. The Sri Lanka Press Council has been first established as a statutory board on 14th June 1973 as per the regulations of the Press Council Act number 5 of 1973 under the purview of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to maintain journalistic ethics and address complaints about the media. This is the first action taken by the Sri Lankan government. It serves to newspaper registration. Registration of newspaper had become a prime objective of the Press Council with its inception in 1973. A proper state institution for registration of newspapers did not exist, ensuring the safeguard of character of Sri Lankan press in accordance with the highest professional standards and discouraging absence publication had been occurred with the commencement of registration of newspapers. The second objective, courses and seminars. Even though various state institutions, universities, private institutions, and organizations conduct courses of journalism, it is the responsibility of the Sri Lanka Press Council to conduct systematic seminars and workshops on journalism and communication study in accordance with the government policies. It is expected to popularize a better media culture within the island. And third objective, encourage media outlets to align to established code of conduct. The second mechanism in Sri Lanka, that is Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka, we call it at PCCSL. The Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka is a voluntary self-regulatory mechanism inaugurated on October 15, 2003 by the media industry following an international conference whose outcome was the Colombo Declaration on Press Freedom and Social Responsibility of 1998 and revisited in 2008 and 2018. It has a vision to promote the Code of Professional Practice of the Editors Guild of Sri Lanka as a means towards promoting self-regulation in the print media while emphasizing its importance towards ethical reporting in building a socially responsible press to resolve disputes between the print media and the public through conciliation, mediation, arbitration, and to advocate for more responsible media. Then third one, it's about the control over the digital and social media. Digital and Social Media Regulations and Online Safety Act. With the rise of digital and social media platforms, ethical issues like fake news, hate speech, and misinformation have become more prevalent in Sri Lanka. In response, the media activists have been exploring various mechanisms to regulate online content voluntarily. However, the challenge lies in ensuring these measures do not violate freedom of expression. The Social Media Declaration Colombo highlights the need of a code of conduct for responsible social media usage. This declaration is an attempt to recognize the inviolable importance of the freedom of expression on or over social media, yet at the same time, encourage and strengthen the ethical, progressive, democratic, and pro-social use of social media. As a recent development, the Online Safety Act, which controls the digital media and social media, comes to the power. The Online Safety Act number 9 of 2024 is a Sri Lankan Internet Safety Act aimed at regulating its citizens' internet usage. It was announced in September 2023 and passed by Parliament on 24th, 2024. The Act aims to make provisions to prohibit online communication of certain statements of fact in Sri Lanka and prevent the use of online accounts and inauthentic online accounts for prohibited purposes. And the fourth one, the role of civil society and media watchdogs. Civil society organization and media watchdog groups such as the Free Media Movement, Center for Policy Alternative, Sri Lanka Working Journalist Association, Sri Lanka Tamil Media Alliance, Sri Lanka Muslim Media Forum, Federation of Media Employees Trade Union, South Asian Free Media Association, SAFAMA Sri Lankan Chapter, and the press clubs of Jaffna, Mullaitivu, Kilinochchi, Vavuniya, and Bettiklo play a critical role in holding media outlets accountable. They advocate for press freedom and media independence, monitor ethical violation in media practices, promote public awareness about the importance of responsible media consumption. Now we will go through one by one and see the role and whether they achieve their objective or not one by one. As I said earlier that the first foremost effort made by Sri Lankan government, that is called Sri Lanka Press Council. You can see some of the cartoons illustrated by that very popular cartoonist from Sri Lanka. So see that the current condition of the recent years and the present time also, that how that press freedom is affected by the different manipulations and interventions. So these are some of the cartoons will explain you visually, that how that things are going on. So the media has become a tool for the government interventions. Okay, now we will move to the Sri Lanka Press Council. Yes, as I said earlier, the Sri Lanka Press Council plays a key role in regulating and promoting ethical standards within the media in Sri Lanka. However, despite its mandate, the Press Council has faced several setbacks and challenges that have affected its ability to fully carry out its responsibilities effectively. Some of the main setbacks includes, the first one, legal authority is limited. One of the most significant challenges the Sri Lanka Press Council faces is limited legal authority. While the council can issue recommendation and media complaints, it does not have the power to enforce binding decisions. The means that media outlets or journalists can choose to ignore the council finding without facing legal or professional consequences, reducing the effectiveness of its role in regulating ethical standards. And the second thing actually make it weak, that is lack of independence. There are some concern about independence of the Press Council. Being a government-appointed body, the Press Council is sometimes seen as vulnerable to political interference. This raises questions about its impartiality when handling complaints or overseeing media content that may be critical of the government. A perceived lack of independence can undermine public trust in the Council's ability to function as an objective regulator of the media. Then third one, weak enforcement mechanism. The Sri Lanka Press Council has been criticized for inability to effectively enforce its own recommendations. While it can issue public statements or reprimands, these lack the power to directly influence the media industry or compel outlets to comply with ethical standards. And fourth one, limited reach and influence. The Press Council primarily focuses on print media, which has become less dominant in the face of growing digital and broadcast media. In an era of rapid technological change, the Sri Lanka Press Council's focus on print journalism limits its reach and impact. Digital platforms such as social media are largely beyond its control, which allows misinformation, fake news, and harmful content to proliferate unchecked. Then third one, media ownership concentration. In Sri Lanka, the media ownership concentrated in the hands of few large corporations, which can lead to biased coverage and sensationalism. The Press Council has limited ability to address these issues as it lacks sufficient regulatory power to monitor and control media conglomerates. Media ownership concentration also undermined the diversity of viewpoints, which is essential for ethical journalism. Lack of resources is another disadvantage to function for the Sri Lanka Press Council. The Press Council has often been criticized for its lack of resources, both financial and human. With limited funding, it is difficult for the Council to carry out its responsibility effectively. And the weak public awareness and engagement also made an impact. There is often a lack of public awareness about the role and function of the Press Council. Many citizens are unaware of how to file complaints or how the Council operates, which means that the public does not fully engage with a mechanism in place to hold the media accountable. Then resistance from the media professionals. As I highlighted earlier, that the main administration is appointed by the government. Many journalists and media outlets in Sri Lanka are resistant to the Press Council's oversight. Some views it is an encroachment on their editorial freedom, and there is a skepticism about the Council effectiveness and objectivity. And another important point to make it weakness, that failure to address new media challenges. With the rise of digital media, including social media platforms and online news sites, the Press Council has struggled to adapt its regulation to new challenges. And political and legal pressure, challenges in addressing press freedom violations also another important thing. While the Press Council is supposed to protect press freedom, it has been ineffective in addressing serious violation of press freedom in Sri Lanka, such as threats, harassment, or violence against journalists. You know that the Sri Lanka has recorded that so many unethical disappearance and imprisonments for the journalist. The Council has been criticized for not being proactive enough in defending journalists' rights and for not doing enough to combat impunity for crimes committed against the media. So these are the things actually that made the Press Council is very ineffective. So the Sri Lanka Press Council, despite its more important role in regulating and promoting ethical journalism, faces numerous setbacks that limits its effectiveness. These challenges include its lack of enforcement power, limited scope, independent concerns, and resistance from media industry itself. To address these setbacks, there is a need for structural reforms, greater sources, and more robust mechanism for regulating both traditional and digital media platforms in Sri Lanka. Then we are expecting a more independent, well-funded, and comprehensive regulatory body could help ensure that the media remains a force for truth, accountability, and social good. Then I will move to the second part, that is the Press Complaint Commission. The Sri Lanka has a code of ethics for journalists that outlines standards and guidelines for responsible journalism. The code of practice, which is binding on all press institutions and journalists, aims to ensure that the print media in Sri Lanka is free and responsible and sensitive to the needs and expectations of its readers while maintaining the highest standards of journalism. This Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka was established by the Editors Guild of Sri Lanka, and compared with Sri Lanka Press Council, is more independent. So that Sri Lanka Press Complaint Commission is an important institution established to address complaints related to unethical journalism and practices in the media. However, like the Sri Lanka Press Council, the Press Complaints Commission has faced various weaknesses and setbacks that have hindered its ability to effectively regulate and promote media ethics in the country. Again, that limited legal authority enforcement power is a setback to it. That, as I said earlier, look like Sri Lanka Press Council. One of the primary weaknesses of the Press Complaint Commission is its limited legal authority to enforce its decision. The Commission can only issue recommendations or suggestions to media outlets and journalists, but it cannot impose any binding legal penalties. This lack of enforcement power significantly reduces its ability to compel media organizations to comply with its ruling, meaning that even when unethical practices are identified, there are no direct consequences if media outlets choose to ignore the Commission's finding. So this is that setback we have noted in several times. Then again, the lack of independence, because it comes under the Sri Lanka Editors Guild. The Editors Guild is not ready to take very serious actions about their inner side of faults and misbehaviors. Then limited jurisdiction, slower response time, that is also another important point I wish to highlight here. Then lack of resources, lack of cooperation from the media, ineffective enough in addressing system issues. And public unawareness of the compliance process. So this is a larger struggle to us to implement a good mechanism for media freedom in Sri Lanka. Many Sri Lankans are unaware of how to file complaints with the Press Complaint Commission or the role of the Commission plays in regulating media ethics. This lack of awareness is compounded by insufficient public outreach or education campaigns about the Commission's function. Then the limited impact on digital media and fake news. So the uprising issues regard to the digital media and social media. Since it's that Press Complaint Commission's efforts only concentrated on the print media side, it's unable to take over the issues which relevant to the social and new media platforms. So the Sri Lanka Press Complaint Commission, while playing a critical role in addressing media ethics and promoting responsible journalism, the challenges include limited enforcement power, lack of independence, slow response time, and inadequate resources also affects its active participation. Then when we move to the third part, that is that how we have that current scenario regarding that digital and social media regulation and online safety act, which is newly established. The social media declaration adopted in Colombo 2019 represents an important step in addressing the challenges posed by social media in Sri Lanka. It was aimed to promoting responsible use of social media while acknowledging the growing influence of platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and others on public discourse, political processes, and social dynamics. So that under the key aspects of the social media declarations, the first one, combating misinformation and hate speech. The declaration emphasized the importance of addressing misinformation, fake news, and hate speech on social media platforms. The secondly, it's targeted on encouraging respect for diversity and social harmony. That is a key element of the declaration, is the encouragement of tolerance and respect for diversity on social media platform. And third one, the promoting accountability and transparency. The declaration calls for greater accountability and transparency from both users and social media platforms. And fourth one, the personal responsibility and ethical conduct. That is the central theme of the Code of Conduct, is the idea of personal responsibility. Social media users are expected to use social media platforms in a way that align to ethical guidelines such as truthfulness, integrity, and fairness, and avoid spreading harmful and unverified information that could lead to violence or damage reputations. The fifth one, collaboration between stakeholders. That is also another important key aspects in the social media declaration. So among the government, social media companies, the big tech companies, civil society organization, and users. So this mandate is try to cover all these stakeholders and make them a very good relationship when the issues raises up. Then another very important aspect it has, that promoting digital literacy. The declaration underscores the importance of digital literacy in the modern age. It encourages educational initiative to teach people how to navigate social media platform ethically, evaluate the credibility of information, and understand the risks associated with online interaction. That's why that government now that seriously concentrate on how to develop media literacy among the school-going children and the university students. Legal framework and governance. The declaration calls for a legal framework that promotes to responsible use of social media without interfering on freedom of expression. So these, even though that it has a lot of aspects related to these type of very positive things, but there are challenges and criticisms of the declaration. Since it's only a declaration, it has no legal binding to cover that the very serious measures to be taken against the violations. So that while the social media declaration and code of conduct provide useful guidelines for responsible social media use, they have also faced criticism and challenges. The first one, balancing regulation and freedom of expression, and enforcement and compliance, digital divide. Not all Sri Lankans have equal access to digital platforms, and those without internet access or the skills to navigate social media responsibly may be excluded from the benefits of the declaration's goals. So even though the government take very constructive efforts to have that public Wi-Fi system to all over the country, but it's not materialized so far. So under these changes, that I wish to talk about that the recent development of challenges and criticism of the Online Safety Act. So that government now tried to implement this one. It has been passed through the parliament, but the very pathetic condition, the new government also not appointed the commission to make it practical, to make it implement. So this is the Online Safety Act, has been criticized by human rights groups, journalists and opposition politicians as a means of stifling freedom of speech. Media and civil rights groups accused the previous government of trying to introduce more repressive laws is an attempt to suppress the public rights to expression as a narrow effort with the aim of winning the election at any cost. Even not only that human rights groups, even that Asia Internet Coalition and industry group opposed the bill when it was first announced in the September last year. Managing Director Jeff Payne said in a statement at the time that the bill provides for a draconian system to stifle dissent and Sri Lankan's rights to expression. He further added, while our member companies take seriously the online safety of those who use their services, legislation should not dampen innovation by restricting public debate and the exchange of ideas that can consequently impact the digital economy. Even though I was a part of the team of the advisory group to help the government to talk with the main internet access groups, the tech companies, the mounted from Singapore, they simply asked us, okay, if you are going to have this type of restriction, what will happen to the whistleblowers? So they argued that the whistleblowers' role, the role of the whistleblowers are very important to have that the better democracy for the country. So if we have this type of Online Safety Act, it will actually degrade the activities of the whistleblowers. So that those type of interventions are now become a barriers to implement the law in the country. Even not only that, the United Nations Human Rights Office also spoke against the bill in October. Yes. The raising issues with proposed punishment for violators, the organization said it include an overly broad definition of terrorism and grant wide powers to the police and to the military to stop, question and search and to arrest detained people with inadequate judicial oversight. So that apart from that, Article 19 and other 50 organizations have urged Sri Lanka's Ministry of Public Security to withdraw the proposed online safety bill and to conduct meaningful consultation with all stakeholders, including local groups. So now that even though the new Anurakkumara Dissanayaka government came to power, the commission not appointed so far to proceed and implement the Online Safety Act so far. So under these circumstances, now that the media activists, journalist groups, and other civil society organizations propose some recommendation to the government, this will be the final part of my presentation. So that they have proposed some very constructive measures to be taken very quickly. The government should take urgent steps to establish an independent regulatory body to regulate the media sector in the public interest. The regulatory body should be accountable to the public and be independent from political and business interest. The government should launch an inclusive multi-stakeholder discussion to determine the laws and policies needed to foster genuine pluralism and diversity of media in Sri Lanka. The researchers and civil society groups should expand their media monitoring work to go beyond content analysis and ethical consideration of editorial practice to also include the public checking of political affiliations and the non-media business interest of media owners. Then very importantly that the civil society groups argued that the Sri Lanka Press Council Act, what I mentioned in the first one, established by the government, constituted by the government, that should be repealed and the state apparatus known as Sri Lanka Press Council should be abolished. So their demand is like that. Then they have proposed this expansion for Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka. The media industry should strengthen the Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka and also explore the possibilities of expanding its scope to cover broadcast and entirely web-based news media outlets. A national consultation should be held with all relevant stakeholders to determine how best to proceed. If the broadcasters are not agreeable to be a part of Press Complaint Commission of Sri Lanka, they should set up their own public complaints and grievance mechanism covering broadcast content. Then finally, the media should display culture of self-regulation. The media should ensure they have codes of ethics and editorial guidelines and publicize them widely so that there is more transparency and they are used in actual practice. So that finally that now the stand of the media activist groups to go for the self-regulatory system which can govern the media itself and regulate itself in their own. So this is the final recommendation made by the Sri Lanka media industry to promote that press freedom in Sri Lanka. So I try to cover that present existence scenario. So thank you very much for listening my presentation. Thank you.
Now I stand elated to announce the Best Paper Awards for yesterday's online session. For the session Media Ethics and Standards, we have Ms. Suguna K. on her paper titled Feminist Approach on Critical Frame Analysis of Intimate Partner Violence News, Comparative Study on Shraddha's murder case and Mahalakshmi's murder case. And for the next session, Media Diversity and Representation, we have Ms. Sindhu Menaka, Dr. Mary Janila, and Ms. Vasuki Madhivandan on their paper titled The Influence of Parenting Styles and Media Usage on Modern Indian Parenting. And for the final session, Media and AI, we have Dr. M. Vagisan on his paper titled Empowering Learning Through AI, Exploring Credibility and Literacy in Media Education. Now, I would like to call Dr. G. Vasant Ma'am, our head of the department, to give away the vote of thanks.
Good evening, respected dignitaries, distinguished academicians, eminent media professionals, esteemed guests, faculty members, and dear students. I know it's been a long day for all of you, from the morning to evening, but I think we had a very good, insightful session today, from which we have a lot of takeaways if you have really got involved in every session. It is my profound honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks at the conclusion of this remarkable two-day international conference on media and social responsibility. This gathering has been an extraordinary intellectual journey graced by eminent academicians, media professionals, as we all witnessed today. On behalf of our college, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the esteemed speakers, panelists, and session moderators. Your invaluable insights and thought-provoking discussions have significantly contributed to a deeper understanding of the role and responsibility of media in shaping a just and informed society. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the New Indian Express for being our print partner and the Federal for being our digital partner. My gratitude goes to the media professionals and journalists for their extensive coverage of this conference. Your efforts in bringing our discussions to a wider audience will certainly help in spreading awareness about the crucial themes deliberated upon in these 2 days. To our enthusiastic participants, scholars, researchers, and students, your engagement, thought-provoking questions, and contributions have truly enriched the discourse. Your active participation is a testament to the significance of this subject and your commitment to responsible media practices. I extend my deepest gratitude to the management in general and Shri Ashok Kumar Mundra and Shri Ashok Kedia, Secretary and Treasurer of our college, to have always been the driving force behind all our endeavors. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. S. Santosh Babu, for his constant motivation and all those who have supported this endeavor directly or indirectly. Your encouragement and vision have played a crucial role in making this conference a resounding success. A special word of appreciation goes to our organizing team, both faculty and students, and the dedicated members of the Department of Visual Communication, whose tireless efforts, meticulous planning, seamless execution have been instrumental in ensuring the smooth conduct of this conference. I thank the admin and support staff of the college for their support whenever required. As we bring this conference to a close, let us carry forward the insights gained and work collectively towards fostering a more ethical and responsible media landscape. Thank you all once again and wishing you continued success in your academic and professional pursuits.